So it is high summer down here in South Texas, which means with the sun up, humidity high, we're looking at 104 degrees in the shade. So Huck and I are out here with our water bottles to show you something pretty important, and that's going to be foraging technique. The do's and don'ts, the ins and outs, what you can find down here in this habitat at this time of year, which is pretty substantial. Got some cool stuff to show you. But we'll walk around, it'll be an adventure, and undoubtedly you'll learn something. So let's go ahead and get started. Go Huck. Alright, so to start out, let's talk about the most important fruit-bearing tree we have this time of year, and that's our Texas persimmon. This has tons of sugar on it, it's easy to identify, you have really smooth, light-colored wood, and all these green and black fruits. You can go up under here, the black ones are the ripe ones, and they are full of sugar. The inside of the fruit's actually black as well, has 3 to 8 seeds inside of it. Don't eat the seeds, but this thing is just full of calories and sugar. Birds love them, eat them up. You can make all kinds of stuff out of them, jams, jelly, and wine. So this is one you want to find. As the green ones turn black, they'll become ripe, and if you found these, you're in good company. Now within a stone's throw, maybe 100 yards by 100 yards, if I'm throwing stones really well, I've got almost 80 trees in this area alone. So once you find one, look around, you're going to find more. Another important fruit is the desert hackberry. We usually have these things growing in proximity of the persimmons. So take a look at those fruits. Those are orange, fairly tight, full of little bitty seeds, but packed with sugar. So you can eat the whole seed. The berry's good to go all the way down, and there's usually a ton of them on these bushes. Now, as I mentioned, they're usually with the persimmons. So if you look up here through the tree, you can see a couple of the persimmon branches coming through, a few of the ripening persimmons, and these things just kind of grow side by side or within each other, as you can see here. Good fruit to know. So if you've been to Texas, you've seen them mesquite, and whether they've been in the tree form or bush form, we have them pretty much everywhere. Now we don't just use the wood to flavor our barbecues. Once a year, they actually produce a bean. It looks much like a green bean does, but that is not the ripened form. You don't want to pick those things. You want to wait until they dry out and desiccate a bit. They'll turn yellow, sometimes with a little bit of reddish on them. At that time, they're ready to pick. They need to dry all the way out. Now, you're not really going to be eating the beans inside. You can break them open with rocks and get the protein out of them, but for the most part, what you're looking for is that material inside between each of the beans, and that's going to be full of sugar, good flavor. Try it out. It's a really, really good survival food if you come across these. So if you found one mesquite, you'll find a lot of them. Now what you do want to look out for are holes in the pod. So check that out. You don't want to collect these off the ground, and you don't want to collect the ones that have holes. And it's not so much the bug that burrowed in there that you're worried about, but it is the fungus that comes in after that, that's now allowed into the pod. That can really mess you up. So whenever you are picking these things, be very selective. Any of the pods that have holes in them, throw them away. Be careful, guys. Good survival food, part of Texas. Alright, so for a little bit of southern spice, we have the Chile Poutine pepper, and this thing is extremely hot. It's small, but it packs a punch. We're talking many times hotter than a jalapeno, up there with ghost peppers. So you can crunch them up, dry them up, put them in vinegar. You can eat them raw. The red ones are more mild than the green ones, but one way or another, that's going to enhance the flavor of whatever you put on there. A little bit goes a long way, but definitely something you want to know about. Quite a few calories in each one, but I wouldn't try and survive off of peppers alone. You'll hate yourself. So down here in the south, wildflowers are definitely part of our landscape. Fortunately, our sunflowers are a very edible portion of that landscape. So from the petals to the seeds that you can actually mush up, though they're very small, to the new leaflets, the small ones, they're very tender, and the insides of the stalks, if you cook them down enough, the entire plant's pretty much edible. So enjoy them as a flower, but also know that they're a food group if necessary. So this fruit-bearing tree is the Inagua, also known as the Sandpaper tree, and I'm showing it to you for several reasons. Now it looks pretty barren, and that's because it is. There's a couple of yellow, orangish berries up there, but they're about a third of the size that they should be. Now I'm showing you this to illustrate the idea that trees have cycles, and just because you got fruit off of it the year before doesn't mean the next year you will. This thing has a 3 and 4 year cycle. Last year it had so many berries, so much fruit on it, that it was actually hard to see the leaves themselves. So from year to year, you have a big variation when it comes to what you have at your disposal. So check it out. Be able to identify them? They're all over the place, and if they're producing a lot of calories, good stuff. Tastes kind of like an apple. More flowers. Now this is the Turks Cap, also known as the forest rose. It has a very, very distinct flower pattern, kind of a cyclone right there, with a very tall stamen. Now that entire flower is edible, so you can pick that off, you can eat it, a little bit of nectar inside. You might want to make sure that there's no insect within before you do consume that. Even the leaves themselves, especially the small leaflets, you can eat those in salads, you can cook them down, very edible. And one of the greatest things about this is the actual fruits these produce. So look down here. This is the forest rose apple. And they go from an orange to a red, and that's when you know they're ready. Pick them off. Some of those leaflets off. A few seeds inside. The seeds are edible. It tastes kind of like applesauce, very sweet. The birds like them. And they're ready to eat. You know, very useful plant. If you have an abundance of them and you're kind of just moving through the area, you can also use the stems and the fibrous parts for cordage. So those things work pretty well. But know that if you're breaking this thing up for cordage, you're kind of destroying all your future food. So good stuff. So this tree that I'm leaning up against is our mulberry tree. And so 1 month out of the year, earlier on in the summer, it is completely covered with mulberries. Given certain circumstances, it can actually produce twice a year, but I wouldn't hold out for it. Now, even though it doesn't have berries on it at this time, and those berries are very nutritious, have a lot of sugar, you can actually eat parts and portions of this tree. So the new little leaflets up here, these can be cooked down, put into a salad, and I use them in primitive cooking quite a bit. And also the bark, and this is when you get really, really desperate. You can open this up, pull the outside bark off, the inner bark, if you grind it up, cook it down, you can make a porridge or kind of a flour, and that'll get you by. Okay, so this is really, really starvation food when you get down to it, but options are good to have. This is your mulberry tree. So as you can see here below me, we're down by the river. And rivers offer unique opportunities. Any kind of waterway, streams, even ponds or rivers like this, they are hubs for life. And what that usually means is that you can get your hands on the calories and food you need to get by pretty easily. Now that being said, these hubs of life, they attract all types. Not just stuff that you can consume and easily get to be able to eat and get the calories you need, but also things that can potentially harm you. So poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, various venomous snakes, and any number of other hazards, especially the creatures that come down to eat the same kind of foods that you're going after. But in this immediate area, just right here within a stone's throw, you can see lots of different plants that are useful. First and foremost, you can see this willow right here. If you chew on that bark or go ahead and chew on the leaves, you're looking at a natural aspirin. So medicine is definitely important. It's something you'll find around waterways. If you pound up, grind up, and cook down the bark itself, it'll make a very, very crude porridge and sometimes a flour if you work at it long enough. So a very useful plant to have. You also have our mulberries that we've already talked about, and they've made a pretty good support structure for this great big grapevine coming down. And within the next month, those grapes are going to be available, and that's going to be more sugar at your disposal. So that's very, very important. Now down here below me, this might look like just grass, but months ago this was covered, this entire side was covered with wild onions. And even though the seed heads are gone and most of the upper portions of the plants are gone, I could dig within a short amount of time and pull up those bulbs because they are still under the soil. I'll cook them up and get a pretty fast meal. We also have various dewberries, wild pecans are growing up through here, and not to mention just the foraging, but down here in the water is where the real protein's at. So with the bare hands, we can easily go down and get clams and mussels. You also have various burrows of crawfish. You can stick your arms down there and you can pull out crawfish one after another. And that's fast and easy protein. Takes no tools, no experience. You get the food, you get it very quickly. If you have fishing gear, you can pull out some of the creatures that are actually under the waters. A little bit of bait, a little bit of time. Given the right technique, you can do very well. And you can also set up a lot of traps on the various trails that you'll find out here. And those are to actually catch the animals that have come down to eat the same foods that you're going after. So rivers are definitely an abundance of life, food, but know that they come with their own dangers. Leaves at 3, let them be. This is your poison ivy. You do not want to forage that. Alright, so take a look at what we found here on the ground. And this is important for several different reasons. These are 2 adolescent pecan nuts. Now, they've probably been knocked down by the wind. They're not actually ready to be eaten. Sometimes the squirrels will eat a portion and throw them down. These are undamaged. This is important for several different reasons. Now, if you ever find yourself around the big trees, especially down by a river, a lot of times it is impossible to actually identify nuts, berries, fruits from ground level. They're just so high up in the canopy that you can't see them. So keeping your eyes down on the ground, looking for berries, nuts, fruits, any of the foods that could have fallen from the upper branches is a good way of finding orchards that you might have otherwise passed up. Sometimes that food's still viable. Now, even though these things are not ripe yet, give them a couple weeks, they might become edible. Not only that, they're going to start attracting all kinds of squirrels and pigs and other creatures that are going to be eating and using that food source. Now, word to the wise, I would not be camping around your nut and fruit trees. At nighttime, they get really busy and very loud. So definitely have that in mind. But keep your eyes to the ground. That being said, just standing right here talking about this, check out this grass. This is a river oat. And it takes a lot of effort to actually get the meat out of it. You'll let it dry up. Each one of these heads, you open up a little leaflet, and inside you're going to find a little black seed. And it takes a lot of effort to get those out, but if this is all you got, it's better than sitting there and starving. So food is all around us. As long as we know what to look for and how to get to it, shouldn't have any problem surviving. So this is the Mexican buckeye bush, and it's not really good for anything. And the reason I'm showing you this is to illustrate the idea that not everything in nature is made for us. It's not always useful. Now these pods are going to get dark, they're going to dry up, and they'll have really cool black marble seeds inside. They don't do anything useful at all. So the idea behind this is that in foraging and survival, whatever you're doing, knowledge is power. And if you're in a short-term survival situation, don't just go out and start doing the rub test, trying to figure out what's toxic and what's not. Okay, you're going to do a lot more harm a lot faster. You've got 30 days. If you pretty much slow down your metabolism, keep your movement down, you can starve very slowly, or within a few hours you can poison yourself very quickly. So exert caution. So this is our prolific prickly pear cactus, and if you find one, you're going to find a lot of them. Now the entire cactus is actually edible, but this time of year, all the way up to about November, December, these fruits are coming off of them. These are called tunas, and usually you can just twist them off. They're ready when they're purple, and if you notice, I'm putting my thumb and my finger in a very specific spot because these tiny thorns called glaucids can really mess you up. But the idea is that this portion of the cactus is incredibly sweet. And if you'll just take the skin off, just kind of peel it back. What you're doing for the most part is getting that nasty skin that doesn't taste that great and getting the thorns cut off. You're going to be left with an extremely sweet, though full of seeds, fruit. And it kind of reminds me of raspberries. But awesome food, good survival food, lots of calories. You can also go ahead and bake the pads, cook them over a fire any way you want them. They're easy calorie, easy meal. When you found cactus, you're doing all right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up with the yucca, but understand that I have just scratched the surface when it comes to forageable materials down here in South Texas. Now, whether you're using it as a tool or as a food group, there is a lot to be learned out here. Now, the yucca plant is something that I've done several videos on. This is one of the most useful plants I have out here. From the actual leaves, being able to make cordage, to the roots full of saponins, being able to make an antimicrobial soap of sorts, to the actual stalk here, which is a food group. Whenever this is green and coming up, you can chop it up, saute it. It's kind of got the consistency of a good squash. When this is actually a giant blossom, all these flowers, the petals are very edible. They'll eventually turn bitter and fall off, but until then, it's a pretty good meal. Now, the flowers themselves will actually become large pods. These are going to be yucca pods. You can bake them, big green fruits, and they make a pretty good food. And even if you don't get to those at that time, these guys shrivel up and eventually make these nasty dried up husks. And even then, the yucca's not done giving. So I'll be showing you this here in the future. If you break them open, what you're going to find are lots and lots of little black seeds. And as you extract those out, we can crush those up and grind them and make them into a primitive meal, kind of a flour. And I'll show you how to make bread out of that. So all in all, your yucca just keeps on giving. Guys, hope you all have enjoyed today. We'll make more of these videos throughout the seasons to kind of show you what's available, depending on what the climate's giving you. Like and subscribe, and as always, until next time.